Boom. All right, we've made it. Karl Marx Communist Manifesto, coming your way. So, Karl Marx. I think first thing before we start getting into Karl Marx and Marxism is understanding exactly who Marx was, the world that he grew up in, the things that he saw changing in his life, and the problems that he is hoping to address. With that, let's consider this one a history in context, and understand the atmosphere surrounding Karl Marx before we start analyzing Karl Marx himself. Karl Marx was raised in Prussia, a period just before the unification of Germany. There was many wars coming on or before his time, just during his time. He's really on the tail end of this age of revolution. Great book from a Marxist perspective, Eric Hobsbawm, The Age of Revolution. But he saw in his recent years, not in his life, but just before his life, there was the French Revolution, there was the Haitian Revolution, there was the American Revolution, and all these other revolutions, as well as the Crimean Wars. Taking up arms was not an unusual thing in his time. Another major transition that was taking place was the Artisan Movements. This period where there used to be something of an artisan guild. There's these guilds that began to regulate the market, protecting particular industries, so that everybody could succeed. But this whole world was kind of disappearing, right? So your family was weavers, probably the reason why your last name was Weaver, and you guys had your shop down below, your housing residence up above, and you guys weaved all day, every day, and probably took off Saturdays or Sundays to go to church. And then with that, that was the family trade. If you didn't have a family trade, you probably went off and took up apprenticeship, and this is something you can see in colonial America. If you ever end up in the East Coast and visit some of those colonies where they still live like they're in a colony, you'll learn all about the apprenticeship and artisan trades. Whether you're a framer, a woodworker, a shoemaker, candlestick maker, whatever it may be. So that was the family trade, and in fact, you can even read autobiographies that depict some of that. I'm thinking of Benjamin Franklin's. But that was the world all the way up until this really Marxist period. And this kind of mid-1800s, you have the Industrial Revolution that's really booming, and things are being automated, first by water power, and then later on by fossil fuels, coal. But these begin to arise in cities where, say there's predominantly weavers, and somebody sets up their factory and says, hey, let me go ahead and sell your goods. Now, this whole market had its own way of functioning, pretty much working for a day wage, which is what he largely argues against, is shaping out to really give you a better system of living, because you would make your bolts of fabric, and then you have to go take it down to the port and market it to somebody, and then you have to, hopefully set up a contract with some other, merchant to sell your goods. And all of the business through and through is on you. If you are an entrepreneur, you probably understand a little bit of what that dichotomy was like. Dichotomy? Anyways, man, they cut off all the shade off these trees. Why do they do that? So, as far as working in a factory, you didn't have to worry about that. You earning money, you making your fabric, and then you having to sell it all. And if you have just a bad month, a bad week, and you just can't get your product to move, or it turns out that everybody decided they wanted the orange fabric and you spent all your money on the red fabric, oh God, what are you going to do now? So this is all changing. It's all disappearing. People are moving into the factories, and he says, hey, I'm going to hire you to do what you do well, and I will give you a day wage. Guaranteed money in hand. You can go off and live your happy, merry life. All you got to do is show up for 10, 12, 18 hours. And a lot of that will be worked out over time, largely due to Marx. But that was the world. That's what was happening. That was what was changing. And that is why the factories filled as opposed to empty. So we have to understand that that's an important part in Marx's critique. It's not this that people had no other choice. There were lines trying to get in the factories because it was guaranteed work, guaranteed pay. There was a surety in what you did. And the world did not function like that prior. Feeding your family and all of that, that was up to you. That was on you. There was nobody else to rely on or depend on except for you and your family, which is also why you kind of lived with extended family for the most part. And there's some of that similarity that still happens today, and you'll see that within third world countries and how they function. But anyways, this is the world that Marx is growing up in. Again, he's working as a philosopher, so it's really important to understand that many of the fields that we have today weren't quite established as their own particular schools of study. They were under the field of philosophy. So economics, being an economist, wasn't really a profession. Adam Smith, who is considered to be the father of economics, is not an economist in his day. He is a philosopher, and particularly a moral philosopher. For him, markets were about morality, not necessarily about money. Now we've separated that whole philosophy, that whole idea of what is right and wrong and what we should be doing out of markets, and it's all about just bigger bangs for your buck, and how much money the government should roll around. Marx isn't all that far from that. He's a economist, only instead of being necessarily about a moral, ethical part of business or nations, it is for him centered on the worker, and it is the worker that is most important, and so it's whatever is right according to or most justified to what the worker needs. Anyways, I gotta go eat, feed this guy, and if I have more thoughts, I'll pick up on that.